Hey, what's going on, everybody? In this video, we're going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag. I already did the mid-year check-in tag, but I was also tagged for this one, so I figured I might as well do it. And I was tagged by Chris at Chris's Book is Cauldron, so thanks for the tag. He's got a really good channel. You guys should definitely go check it out. Sorry, Chris, that it took so long to film this, but hey, better late than never, I guess. And the original creator is that Shami, and there's 15 questions. I'll put the questions and their links down below, but let's just get started because, like I said, there's 15 questions. And the first one is, what is the best book you've read so far? Now, since I read fantasy and nonfiction, I picked a fantasy book and a nonfiction book. And for the fantasy book, I picked Scott Lynch's The Lies of Locke Lamora. I just really, really love the characters in this book. I also read Red Seas Under Red Skies not too long ago. I really like that one as well. I think this one was just a little bit better, but characterization is usually my favorite thing when I look for in a fantasy novel, so that's probably why I enjoyed this one so much. And I gave it 5 stars, and this was my favorite fantasy book of the year so far. And for a nonfiction book, I went with A World Undone, The Story of the Great War, 1914-1918, by G.J. Meyer. And this, I think, is just the best overview of a World War, or the best single volume book covering World War I that's out there, at least that I've read. I definitely encourage you guys to check this one out if you're looking to start reading about or learning about World War I. Okay, second question. The best sequel you've read so far? This one, I'm going to go with When True Night Falls by C.S. Friedman, and this is the second book in the Coldfire trilogy. The first book is Black Sun Rising. And the reason I like this one so much was a lot of the bad things that were in the first one, even though I really, really liked the first one, it had a few flaws that I really were irritating, I guess. But the biggest flaw I had with the first one is not even that character, kind of minor spoiler, is not even present in this book. So that was definitely a big help, and it just kind of elaborated a little bit more on the like crazy environment, magic system type thing of the Fae on the planet Erna. So yeah, definitely this was a really big improvement, or I wouldn't say a big improvement. It was definitely an improvement on the first book, and I really enjoyed the first book. So that's why it's the best sequel. Alright, question number 3. A new release you haven't read yet but want to. Alright, there's 2 I'm going to pick for this one. First one's going to be Wrath of Empire by Brian McClellan. This is the second book in the Gods of Blood and Powder series. Read the first book, well actually I've read the first book of the first trilogy and the first book of this trilogy, Sins of Empire. Or Gods of Blood and Powder is the trilogy, yeah. Sins of Empire is the first book. I really enjoyed the first one. This one just came out like a month or 2 ago. I definitely need to pick it up and read this one. Really enjoy Flintlock Fantasy, and I think Brian McClellan does a really good job with it. And for a non-fiction new release, I want to read Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs. I've seen this one floating around quite a bit, and for whatever reason, I just want to read some books on dinosaurs, and this one just keeps popping up all the time, so I just need to just bite the bullet and just go buy it and read it. I really don't even have a good explanation why I haven't bought it yet. So those are the 2 new releases that I want to read. Let's see, number 4, most anticipated upcoming release. To be honest, I really don't pay attention to like upcoming releases that obviously aren't out yet. If I had to pick for a fantasy one after like looking around, I guess it's gonna be The Fall of Gondolin by J.R.R. Tolkien, and well, probably edited by Christopher Tolkien if I had to guess. I'm really a big fan of Tolkien, so whenever he puts out these like weird works, I try and get them. And for a nonfiction, I definitely don't pay attention to like new releases in like history, just because no one really cares, to be honest, that I've noticed. But I'm gonna go with, after looking around for a bit, it's Breaking the Spartans, and I have a feeling this is about Epaminondas and Pelopidas, who were Epaminondas was the Theban general who like crushed the Spartans in the 4th century BC. Yeah, 4th century BC. And basically, after that, Sparta was pretty much never the same. Most of the Helots and the Messenians were freed, basically, and they had their own city founded by Epaminondas. So, yeah, the Theban steamroller at Leuctra and Mantinea just totally wiped out most of the Spartan hosts. And after that, Sparta wasn't pretty much anything. But no one cares about Thebes, so they get, like, no credit, like, at all. They're definitely the underdogs who should get a lot more hype than they do. But that'd be a Greek history book upcoming, I think, in a couple months. That I'd be excited to go get. Alright, let's see, number 5, biggest disappointment. Well, if you guys have been following the channel at all, you'll be not surprised that my biggest letdown was The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. And that's pretty much all I'm going to say, because I have a 40-minute... I have a regular book review, and then I have also a 40-minute discussion panel with my friend Tim. That was a lot of fun to make, but yeah, I try to explain myself quite a bit with that one, so I definitely encourage you guys to check that one out on why The Way of Kings was my biggest disappointment of the year. Alright, the biggest surprise of the year. I'm going to go with The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu. I had never read anything Asian fantasy, and this was obviously my first one, obviously, since I hadn't read Asian fantasy, but on the, what was it, the One Readathon to Rule Them All, I used this for one of the challenges, and I just really enjoyed it. Like I said, it was like a blend of like Homeric poetry with Romance of the Three Kingdoms, if you guys are familiar with that. It was just really enjoyable. His prose style in this book was tremendous, and I just really enjoyed it a lot. And this was definitely the big surprise of the year for me. Alright, number 7, a favorite new author. I only went with a non-fiction work this time because, obviously, since I didn't really read fantasy till this year, pretty much every author that I gave 5 stars to would be hard to kind of pick, since I read a lot of just 1 or 2 books by different authors. So I went with a non-fiction author, and it's Adrienne Mayor. And the book I read was The Poison King, The Life and Legend of Mithridates, Rome's Deadliest Enemy. This was just an excellent sort of biography on an ancient historical figure. If you guys don't know, Mithridates was like the king of Pontus in the eastern part of sort of the classical world, and he fought the Roman Republic for most of his like adult life. I felt Adrienne Mayor did a great job fleshing out his life. There was a little bit of speculation, but obviously you're not going to have a book this length at all with no speculation at all. You'd probably only have like a 10-page biography of most classical figures. But not only that, she has this awesome biography of Mithridates, which has tons of information from that time period, basically the fall of the Republic. But also some of the other books she's written include Greek fire, poison arrows, and scorpion bombs, biological and chemical warfare in the ancient world, and the first fossil hunters, paleontology in Greek and Roman times. And then she also has 2 other books. One's on the Amazonians, like the Amazon warrior women. I can't remember what the other one is, but like I said, just really eclectic, awesome themes for books. And I'm going to definitely try and pick up her entire bibliography, basically. So yeah, favorite new historian, Adrienne Mayor. Alright, let's see. Number 8, a newest fictional crush. I had a hard time picking this one just because a lot of the fantasy books I do read don't have that many like really strong female characters, actually, to be honest. But I'm going to go with Heir of Sea and Fire. Well, that's the book. I'm going with Raederle. Or I'm not really sure how you pronounce her name. It's Raederle, so it might be just Raederle or Raederle. I'm just going to go with Raederle. And obviously that's her on the cover. She's super tough. She's awesome. Basically, the first book is told through Morgan of Head's perspective. And then this book is told through Raederle's perspective after the events, like right at the end of the first book. And basically, she goes off freaking hijacking a merchant ship just so she can go search for something. Can't exactly give that away. I almost did. Anyways, she's super cool. She's tough. For example, I'm trying to explain things without giving away anything in case you guys want to read it. Let's just say this artwork was one picture. That's like a scene that takes place in the book, if you guys can see that. Basically, she discovers she always knew she had some inherent magical abilities, like a lot of people in this world. But she definitely expands her powers by understanding herself better as she journeys through the world. And let's just say she's willing to take on that dude, who's also undead, like a wraith, this ancient king lord. Basically, let's just say with, his skull, like someone's skull, and a glass bead necklace that don't have inherent abilities on their own. She pretty much tangles with him with just that. If that's, I know it sounds so weird, but anyways, I really enjoy her because she's tough. She's how should I say, like self-sufficient and just self-reliant, and she learns to come to grips with herself and the people she cares for. So that would be my newest fictional crush. I know that was kind of hard. It was hard to do without giving away anything. But anyways, all right. Number what? What are we at? Number 9, newest favorite character. All right, I'm gonna go with Gerald Tarrant from the Cold Fire trilogy. Or I've read Black Sun Rising and True Night Falls, which I showed earlier. And there's also Crown of Shadows, the third book in the trilogy. But Gerald Tarrant is literally one of the most badass characters I've ever read. Yeah, how do I explain him? Basically, everything he does is almost self-serving, basically for himself. Just so he's kind of scared of dying, to be honest. But let's just say he gave up most of his humanity just so he could keep living and basically watch his pet projects that he started, 900 or 1,000 years ago, basically come to fruition. But I mean, he has a code of ethics, but they're his own kind of code of ethics and morals. He literally founded a religion on a new planet based on his own teachings, which after a while he was just like, yeah, maybe I don't even care about my own teachings that much. Kind of bends his own rules and stuff. But anyways, like I said, he's very self-serving, but he's not pure evil. Even though he does evil things, I don't know. And he's pretty badass. He can fight a little bit, but he's kind of like a sorcerer too. He's awesome. That's all I gotta say. Just read Black Sun Rising, you'll understand. He's also very suave and stuff. I forgot to add that too. He's got a very good James Bond element to him as well. Alright. Where are we at? Number 10. Let's see. Book that made you cry. Okay, there wasn't really a book that made me cry. This was a book that made me sad, at least, I guess you'd say. And it's Betrayal at Little Gibraltar, German Fortress, A Treacherous American Journal, and the Battle to End World War I by William Walker. And this is about, largely about an American regiment division that basically drew the short stick because they were pretty raw recruits, first off. But the battle plan was for them to engage the front of the enemy, so a stronger, more veteran division would flank that position from the rear. And they were okay with that, and they did it, except the other division was basically they almost went against orders, but they were basically forced to bypass that position and just keep going. So it's either 76th or 79th Regiment was essentially left on its own against a really heavily fortified German fortress. And a bunch of, like I said, American regiments were basically just cut down quite a bit. Not 100% obviously, but, needlessly, let's just say that. And it was basically all just so that another general could basically make the headlines for being the first to reach an objective. And that was basically it. And then there's sort of a whole cover-up during the rest of the war and then after the war. So yeah, it was just sad to see how how little petty things can cost so many people's lives just basically for nothing. So this was a book that made me sad. Alright, a book that made you happy is the next question. And this is going to be kind of weird. It's Get Well Soon by Jennifer Wright, and the subtitle's History's Worst Plagues and the Heroes Who Fought Them. So yeah, even though it's a book on diseases and plagues and bad health things basically, there are a lot of highlighted spots where there are people who did a lot or risked their own lives and were basically just selfless in the pursuit of saving people through medicine or things of that nature. For example, there's Saint Damien, who there was a Hawaiian leper colony basically, and he willingly went there and obviously contracted leprosy. But because of his efforts, beforehand, the people literally had no hope, no lives, pretty much at all. But after he lived among them, he helped them out, and basically, created a whole joyful community around basically what he was doing. So it definitely changed everyone's lives for the better in that sense. Obviously, like I said, he contracted leprosy and died of it not too long afterwards. And also, for example, the people of Strasbourg, when there was you'll have to just read it. I don't really know how to explain it. There was a dancing epidemic where people kind of were in this weird trance thing where they had to dance. And instead of just shunning them and all that, all the people of the town, even though many of them contracted this weird thing where they had to keep moving and dancing stuff, they basically, they didn't just exile them or shun them or whatever. They actually went to help them out. And this isn't kind of the early modern, late medieval time where the easier thing to do would have been just kind of let them go off and die. but they didn't, and the town basically came together and helped them out. So this was definitely a book that had lots of moments that actually made me happy. So Get Well Soon is a book that made me happy. All right, number what? Let's see, 12, a favorite book to film adaptation. Pretty much every time I do this, it's going to end up being Lord of the Rings. Basically, yeah, I don't even think I need to explain too much. I know it's not recent, but that's definitely the best book to film adaptation so far this year, and probably every year. Alright, favorite review that I've written. If you guys don't know, I do have a website, trumpetreads.com, and I do a lot of book reviews on that website. Though there's not really too many reviews that just stand out. I try to stay kind of professional with the reviews. Though I will say my Way of Kings discussion panel thing I did was probably my favorite one, just because it was so long and fairly unfiltered. It was kind of fun just talking about all the things I didn't like about the book in a good in-depth way. So I'll go with that one. Alright, 14. Most beautiful book you've bought. Alright, so I have two selections for this one. The first one is for cover art, and it's Sword of Angels by John Marco, and this is the third book in the Bronze Knight trilogy. I have the whole trilogy, and I haven't read them yet. I don't know why, because the art is awesome, as you can just see. It just looks badass. So that's pretty cool. But for beautiful books as well, I went with these recent World War I books that I picked up. It's Source Records of the Great War, and there's 7 volumes. Here's just 3 of them, and a lot of the typography in the cover scroll work and stuff is based on artwork and that sort of stuff from the original Versailles Treaty that was signed after World War I, or at least the French copy of it. But anyways, they just look really cool on the shelf. They look really nice as well. So those are definitely the best books that I've bought this year for aesthetics. And number 15, what books do you need to read this year? Alright, I have 2 selections for this one as well. I have to finish The Complete Chronicles of Conan by Robert Howard. This is all the original Robert Howard stuff. I've been just working my way through it. Every now and then when I get bored, I just read one of the short stories about Conan. And I really enjoy them. I've been just trying to savor it, I guess. But yeah, this is definitely one I need to finish by the end of the year. I'm about a little past, I don't know, in between half and 2/3, I'd say. And for another book is The Soul of an Octopus, A Surprising Exploration of the Wonder of Consciousness by Cy Montgomery. I read Other Minds, which is essentially about the same topic, I guess. But everyone was just saying The Soul of an Octopus is just an awesome, just book that makes you think, really, really think about what it means to have a consciousness and things like that. Just really, I'm really excited to read it. Have this ready for my notes coming up, and this is definitely a book that I need to read by the end of the year, which I'm going to make sure I read it in August, so no worry about that. But alright, so those were the 15 questions of the mid-year book freakout tag. So thanks, Chris, for tagging me in this one. I haven't done a lot of tag videos, to be honest, lately. Well, pretty much at all on the channel. So yeah, guys, go ahead and tag me, I guess. You guys might have already been doing it. I've just been, missing them. So anyways, if you do tag me, just tag me on Twitter too, so I make sure I see it and watch your video. But like I said, if you guys have any questions about any of the books, any comments, questions, just leave them down below. I'll be glad to talk to you about them. And whatever you guys are reading, however much you freaked out this year so far, always remember, read victoriously.